How's it going, everybody? Wanted to hop on here real quick and talk about food cravings because I was having some food cravings today, and I finally cured that craving and just filled myself up with everything that I needed to not have to crave it anymore. And I thought you guys would appreciate it. What was I craving? Well, it's gonna sound weird. Broccoli and asparagus. Probably not things that a lot of you crave, and that's why I wanted to get into this, because a lot of times when we have food cravings, we crave things like sugars and carbohydrates. Maybe we have a craving for Kit Kats and Snickers bars and Reese's. Maybe we have a craving for pizza. Maybe we have a craving for ice cream. Things like that. Pleasure foods typically is what we think of when we think of cravings. And so to hear somebody say, yeah, I was craving broccoli and asparagus, sounds a little odd. So I wanted to dive into that. So to understand food cravings, we have to first understand what's going on down below in your gut. So in our gut, we have billions upon billions of tiny little bacteria, and those bacteria break down the food so that we can extract those nutrients and then use them. Well, what happens is if we keep eating the same foods again and again, the bacteria in our gut start to adapt to the foods that we eat, and that starts to create those cravings. So, for example, there are times where I will go on a little binge and I will eat Mexican food, particularly burritos. I love burritos. It's not uncommon for me to go to my favorite place and get this one particular steak and potato burrito, which is amazing, and maybe I get it 2, 3, maybe 4 times in a row, and days in a row. And what starts to happen is after like that second day or that third day, I crave the burrito. It's because the bacteria in my gut want to eat more of that. They're adapted to breaking down the burrito, so my body is like, hey, I need more of that burrito. That's what I need to eat. So this is what we call gut health, our gut flora. And now there's another side. So the first is our body will crave whatever it is that we typically eat. Whatever ecosystem and environment we've created down here, that's what our bacteria want more of. Now we can change that. We can change that with proper diet. I'm not a nutritionist. Go see a doctor for that. I talk about nutrition from a performance perspective. But if you want to actually get your gut tested and have that all taken care of, go see a professional. But that being said, yes, the gut flora, they feed off what is common, whatever is typically used to breaking down. The other side is there are times where our body notices that is deficient in certain micronutrients. And this is where my particular craving came from for broccoli and asparagus. Because while I do eat healthy, I haven't had broccoli or asparagus in several weeks. I've been out on the road and I've been eating a bunch of crap. So here's where this came from. Is yes, my body is somewhat healthy, all things considered. But when I go long periods of time without eating healthy food, my body's like, oh, Blaine, I need some vitamin K, I need some magnesium, I need some vitamin A and vitamin C. I need that. And so when you eat really well, you can start to notice that. You can start to notice spikes and drops in your blood sugar and things like that. But that's neither here nor there. So what happened today is my body was finally like, Blaine, you just can't eat crap anymore. You can't keep eating granola and beef jerky. There's not that much micronutrient content. Granola is great for carbohydrates. Beef jerky is great for your protein. Nuts are great for your fat. But they're not necessarily the most dense in micronutrients. Maybe nuts, if you get raw and unsalted nuts, but that's another talk for a different day. But what about micronutrients? Well, micronutrients typically come from, yes, Suzanne, vitamin related, but also gut bacteria related. Go back and watch the first half, but we'll keep going. So micronutrients typically come from things that are alive or very close to life. This is why it's so important to support your local farmers, farm to table, local, fresh, organic, because when we pick something out of the ground, it's full of life. And if we eat it right then, we extract that life. So it's a little grotesque to think about, but life feeds on life. And so that's how we have to think about it. The more life that we have in food, the more that we will nourish our body and have life in ourselves. This is why processed foods that have been extracted of all their nutrients need to have nutrients fortified back in. This is why we see enriched flours and things like that. If you check the label on the side of a food box, it probably says this has vitamin A, vitamin C, iron, and maybe niacin or something like that. And a lot of times there's not much in there, but they try to fortify foods as best they can. However, if you're walking down an orchard and you pick an apple off a tree and you bite right into it, it is full of all those micronutrients. And your body's like, yes, thank you. Now, to go back to the first point, if you continue to eat a bunch of foods like that, your gut get used to it and they crave more of it. So that's why a lot of times when people go on diets, they go through like carb withdrawals and things like that because their body's just craving the foods that they used to eat. But that also is another talk for another day. The big point from this, from my point today, is I was driving and I was like, okay, I could just stop at this restaurant and just get some kind of, whatever food, or I can go to the grocery store, I can get a whole thing of asparagus, I can get a big bag of spinach, and I can get a stalk of broccoli and some garlic. And I can go into the kitchen here at the hostel I'm staying at, I can cook it up, I can eat it, it was delicious, I'll post a picture of it. It wasn't the most delicious thing that I've ever eaten, but it was one of the best because my body's like, oh my gosh, I need that. And I topped it off with about 5 clementines, that was a nice dessert, a nice nature's sweet treat, if you will. So when you're, long story short here, when you're looking to buy produce, when you're looking to pick foods that are correct for you, look for foods that are ideally local. It means that they're usually more fresh. Not always the case. Sometimes frozen food has the most micronutrient content in it. That's another talk for another day, but when you just pick it straight out of the ground or off of a tree and you freeze it right away, it preserves some of those nutrients, which is really good. You want to eat things that are organic, and the organic is from the perspective that typically organic foods, there's more nourishment in it. And there's less chemicals used because your body will extract those chemicals, which is not something that we want. So I just lost my train of thought. Anyway, you guys get the point. Eat good food and then eat it enough and your gut will adapt to it. The bacteria and your gut flora are going to want more of it. So if you've been eating like crap, it's okay if the first day you have some cravings for some things that you shouldn't be eating. Just give it enough time, your gut will adapt to it. Again, if you're really serious about getting your gut checked, go see a professional. I am not a medical doctor. I just talk about nutrition from the performance perspective. Put more micronutrients in, your body can regenerate cells, it can heal, it can rest, it can recover. You have more energy because of it, and we start to see this cycle. It is a sweet shirt, isn't it, Travis? National Personal Training Institute, Arizona. Props, Travis. Had an amazing workshop there last week. So excited to see the development of all those young professionals going into the fitness world. Super exciting. And I know they're learning a lot about nutrition over there as well. Anyway, I'm going to hop off and go back to my personal page and do a little mobility tonight. My posture is horrible and I am feeling it. I don't know if I can sit in the car another day without at least doing something today. So for those of you watching, if you want to see what I do to get rid of this horrendous posture, just hop over to my personal page. I'm going to be there in just a second. Until then, eat good food, nourish your body, and do it often, and your body will thank you. Oh, and guys, hydrate and get tons of sleep. I'll see you guys soon.